Hello, welcome back, and let's proceed with our cantilever beam. And we want to create a weld and create a bolt between this end plate and this beam. Now, first of all, let's create a weld between these three components, and then I'll come to steel there and come to auto weld and pick on two objects welding. I'll select weld this to that. We've created a weld there, and I'm going to select on this and that. I think a weld has been created there. So if we right click and select and pick on show assembly, you can see this and this is an assembly, but this one has not been welded. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to repeat the same thing. I'm going to auto weld here. I'll pick on that, and I want to weld this to this, or weld that to that. So that has been created. So if I select on that, right click and come to assembly here, you'll be able to see everything has been assembled. So if I click on that, you'll be able to see this is the assembly we've just created, and this is our cantilever beam that will provide an extension for more space when we create a walkway to help you walk around the tank that will be installed on top here. So let me just right click and come to show all here, and what I'm going to do next is to create a bolt that will connect this beam and this end plate right here. So first of all, let's create a guiding point that will help us in placement of the bolt. I'll come to edit and come to point and pick on dividing points. So I'll pick at the midpoint of this plate, and or come to the end and click create a midpoint. If I turn it around like this, I'll not be able to see that point until I go straight and press Alt and D, and I'll be able to see that plate in the middle here, that point in the middle here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this plate or this point, right click and come to special copy and give it an offset of maybe 60. This is our absolute point, and now we are going to create a relative point that will be relative to this point here. Now I'll give it an offset along the x-axis, but in the opposite direction. Let me just give it 60 and see where it will end. That's it. If I close that and come here and turn that around like that, I think you can see this thing clearly because it is in a different draw or display. So I'll come to steel, I'll come to bolt and pick on that. Now I'll pick the beam and pick the plate. I'll pick the plate right there, right click, and I want to create a bolt between that and that. And remember what has happened. If I press Ctrl D, you'll be able to see the bolts are appearing in the wrong direction. Is because our XYZ is not in line with our plate. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to undo that and reorient our XYZ plane. I'll come to view there and come to more options and pick on the surface, and I want to place my XYZ plane on top there. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing. I'll press Ctrl D, so that Ctrl D, I'll be able to locate my 2 points here. I'll come to steel, then come to bolt, pick on the group, then I'll pick this plate and the beam right there, and the beam right there, right click, and I want to create a bolt from my absolute point to the relative point right there. So I have my bolts in place. So if I press Alt D to display a different draw mode, if you take a look at the screen, you can see 3 bolts, but off the center of our end plate. So I'm going to double click on this and drag this aside, and I'll come to positions here, and I want to change this to 80, and change this to 40 like that. These just coordinates for bolts positions on the y-axis and x-axis. So if I click apply, you can see it's offsetting both bolts against from the absolute points here. Now I'll come to x-axis, and prior to going there, let me just bring this to the center. Let me center my bolts relative to the absolute point here. So I'll come to X alignment and come to middle and click on that and click apply. You can see my bolts are in position, but we have some bolts in the middle that will not make it possible for us to create a connection in between there using bolts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reduce the number of bolts here from 2 to 1, because COMSYS by default create 2 bolts, one from the absolute and one from a relative point. So it is your point to now manipulate it and remain the number with your preferred number of balls as you need. Now let me widen this by coming here and maybe keying 85, which is wrong. Let me just undo that, double click on that, and I come here instead. I'll come to positions and change this to 70. That's okay, I'm okay with that. So I've created that in place. So what I'm going to do next is just to select all this, right click and come to special, select assembly, and this is what we have. Now I want to mirror this on the other end. So how do we do that? I'll reset this to global axis and right click and come to special copy here and click linear. So I'll right click, I've selected that, I want to mirror it on the other end. If I'll come here, pick mirror, and have a mirror line in position, so I'll just go ahead and click copy. So if I come here, I'll be able to see I have my copies in place, and I'll close that. So I want to copy this, distribute this along this end. So let me first of all check the measurement between this and that. So if I select on this, I'll come to edit here and check the measurement here. From here to here to there is how long? This is 6625. So probably we can distribute this. If you divide that by 5, you can get something 1325, I think so. So I'll select that, right click and come to select assembly, right click and come to special copy here, and click on linear. And once I've done so, I'll want to distribute this along the x-axis but in the opposite direction at a distance of 13, probably 25 will work for us. So I'll zoom out and I want to distribute this along this beam by, let me just give them 4 of them and click OK. So we have these in place. So we have all these beams in place, and I want to also to copy them. Select that, then right click and come to special copy and mirror, and I want to mirror this from this end. So let me just snap on that spot and snap on that spot and click run. So if I run the other side, you'll be able to see I have this member in this place. So I want to copy them the other way. So let me just select assembly, then right click and come to special copy here and pick on linear, and I want to distribute them along that way. So I'll use the same measurement here, but this time this will be around 5 of them. Click OK. So there we are, and we have this in place. So that's how we play around that. Now I'll begin by adding more members to trim the edges of all these beams, and that will be done on the next part of our presentation. And let's meet then on the next presentation. Bye bye. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and let me see you then.